Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I've got Jana Danielson. Welcome, Jana.
Lyn, thank you so much for having me here on your podcast today.
You're very welcome. Jana, you are a health wellness coach and expert. So tell the audience a little bit about what you do and how you got to be doing what you're doing now.
Absolutely. So I live in Saskatoon, Canada, and my story actually starts, you know how sometimes they say, everybody has a story, first of all. That's one thing I believe in. And my story was, I turned my mess into my message. And so in my late teens and early 20s, I started developing a lot of digestive pain, and pain where I was, I'm first born in my family, very kind of driven A-type individual. And so I would get this pain in my stomach, around exam time, or if I was waiting for a boy to call me, I would get a little nervous. And I just chalked it up to being a little nervous. But this pain continued. And through my university years, it continued and continued to the point where I started seeing doctor after doctor after doctor, and I would get referrals to specialists. And all I would really get out of those experiences was more medication and no real answers. And I ended up being, finishing my degree, getting engaged to my high school sweetheart, and thinking, what is my life going to be like? I only ever wanted three things. I wanted to have a happy marriage, wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to own my own business. Those were my three goals in life. And I couldn't even get out of bed. And I did. I went through a state of depression because at one point, one of the doctors said to me, Jana, there's nothing more we can do for you. This pain is all in your head. You're seeking attention, and have a nice life. And I went away with my 12 medications thinking, I'm 22 years old. What is my life going to be like? How am I going to make an impact in this world? And so that's really what started me on this path to health and wellness, because my original plan A of like traditional medical system helping me out, it didn't work. And I started thinking to myself, women grow other humans in their bodies. We run marathons, we climb mountains, we do all these things. Our bodies are amazing. There was just something that my body was missing. It was telling me through my pain, but I didn't know how to interpret that. So I found a Pilates class, and I actually, no word of a lie, I saw Madonna in 1999 on the cover of a fitness magazine, and it had the word Pilates on it. I was a huge Madonna fan, and I was like, okay, I got to get this magazine. And I found this article on Pilates, and it resonated with me. And I went to my first class, and my body did nothing my instructor asked it to do. I couldn't breathe properly. I couldn't move my spine properly. And what normally would have been I would have got really pissed off normally, but my brain was intrigued. It was like, what is happening here? And that's how it started, Lyn. And within about 4 months of taking 2 Pilates classes a week, I completely weaned myself off of all my medication. I was living the highest quality of life I had lived in probably 7 or 8 years. And I was just racking my brain trying to figure out, how did this movement heal my body?
Wow. That's incredible. I'm really shocked that you was treated the way you were, in terms of being dismissed by the traditional medical practitioners, so to speak. But isn't it amazing that it's led you to doing exactly what you should be doing now?
Well, and that's exactly it. So, I was a business consultant. That's what I was doing. That's what I went to university for. But there was something inside of me, those little whispers that come to you, those little taps on the shoulder. And I was being in the prairies of Canada, you had to either go to Vancouver or Toronto to get your Pilates training. And we had 3 little boys by then. My husband and I, we still farmed. He had his own job. And I was like, okay, moving for 6 months to get trained is not in the cards for me. But don't you think the universe brought a woman from Phoenix to my city to train in the Pilates mat and comprehensive methods? So I did my training. And I started teaching out of my basement only to my friends and family. My husband got a couple of his buddies and we did guys class twice a week. And that was in 2008. I started teaching 4 classes a week. 16 months later, I was teaching 16 classes a week. We bought some Pilates equipment. I was teaching about 20 hours of privates and realized that there was a business kind of budding right in front of me. My passion was turning into my business. And so my husband quit his job. He took over the business consulting firm. And we opened up our first Pilates studio in 2010. And, the rest really just kind of goes from there. The business continued to grow. In 2015, we expanded to a 9,000 square foot facility. I had a vision to bring therapy and movement together. So I now have a team of 50 practitioners. We have chiropractic care, mental health, physiotherapy, massage therapy, nutrition, fascial stretch therapy, Reiki, reflexology, osteopathy, naturopathic medicine, all under one roof with Pilates and movement. And so I have a team of 50 clinicians and instructors, administrators. We serve thousands of people. And that really energized me. I kept thinking, how can I make my reach beyond my city? And that's when I launched my online platform called the Meta District in September of 2019. Which so many people say to me, oh my gosh, you had such foresight, Jana, 6 months before COVID hit. How did you know? And I'm like, I didn't know. So, I do have an online presence. I take people all over the world through movement experiences, movement education. And then that launched me into my first pelvic floor fitness product. So I love pelvic floor health. And I launched the Cooch Ball for women and the Gooch Ball for men almost exactly a year ago. My Pilates retreats I used to do in Mexico, of course, got halted. So I brought my show online. I do 3-day events for women called the Meta Impact Experience. And I now run a mastermind and a mentorship program. So my focus is women. My focus is women who have had their families, if they so have chosen, who have been growing their careers, growing their businesses, and find themselves in their 40s and early 50s, kind of feeling like they lost a little bit of their sparkle, a little bit of their shine. So that's who I work with. I help them re-engage with themselves, with their health, and really, become the impact that they're meant to be in this world.
That's all fabulous. I love it. And like you say, no coincidence that, things happen the way they did and in divine timing, so to speak, and no coincidence that you're doing so well at what you're doing now. So what we wanted to delve into today was that the 3 secrets women need to know to improve their health. So if you could talk us through that, please, Jana.
For sure. So ladies, what I feel sometimes is that our society, everything is so immediate now, right? Like you can Google whatever you want. You can get information. My gosh, there's a pair of shoes. You can push a button and get a pizza delivered to your door, right? Like there's just all this technology and all these ideas that, the 21-day, cleanse or, boot camp, or we're taught that we need immediate results. And that is not the way our body works. Our body needs some really simple things that we forget about as we get caught up in what we should be doing, or what that magazine article said we should be doing, or that commercial on TV. So I want you to understand the first secret. And ladies, these are going to cost you nothing, no money, just a little bit of time every day. So you're made up of trillions of cells. Those cells make you who you are. They make up our systems. They make up our circulatory system, our digestive system, our nervous system, our skeletal system, our muscular system. And these systems are built to work together. All right. So this is one of the things I like to tell my clients is that traditional fitness teaches us to work our body as parts. You might go to the gym and do, upper body weight work, or you might do your cardio, but you're not working the body as a system. And that becomes a problem when those systems become out of alignment, or one becomes just a little more dysfunctional than another one. So if you think about your self-care, SELF, we hear lots about self-care these days. I like to say self-care is a product or a byproduct of cell care, CELL care. So if you understand when your cells are healthy, you have no choice but for those systems to work like they should, to have energy, vitality, to serve the people that you love as your very best self. Instead of taking, those over-the-counter medications because maybe you have a headache, or, you've got this nagging backache that's bugged you for months and you don't know what to do about it. So secret number one is oxygenation. All right. And I'm going to actually teach you this over the podcast today, because proper breathing using a muscle called the diaphragm is absolutely critical. So I'm going to take you back to the late 1980s. All right. So I was a teenager in the late 1980s. And if you think back to fashion back then, we wore acid wash jeans. They were skin tight. I would lay on my bed in the morning with a coat hanger, and I would hook the coat hanger on my zipper to try and zip up my jeans. Right. Yeah. Yeah, Lynn, you know what I'm talking about, right? That's just how it was, right? The tighter the jeans, the better. We had the asymmetrical haircuts and the big back combing with the hairspray of our bangs, right? But when you think about that, what that fashion did is it was taking space away from us. It's like how Marie Antoinette used to wear a corset. Like, that fashion has been like that. We get this ideal that we're supposed to have this hourglass figure, and that, a tiny waist with like really luscious hips that's appealing, right? But what happens when you take space away from your torso is that your organs literally get smushed. Think of the days when you used to get into an elevator with 20 other people, and you would be standing in this little elevator waiting to go to whatever room your or whatever floor your room was on in your hotel. So think of it like that versus riding an elevator on your own, lots of space, right? What do you think happens when we take space away from our organs? Do you think your stomach can digest as good as it should? Do you think the small and large intestine can do their jobs optimally? Do you think our, elimination system for us to get rid of what we don't need from our food works properly? No, not at all. And so because we live on a planet with gravity, we get drawn down, like literally we're shorter at the end of the day than we are when we wake up in the morning. Did you know that? If you've ever gotten into your vehicle and you look at your rearview mirror and you're like, why am I looking at my back seat? Well, it's because when you got into the vehicle, last night, you were shorter. So you changed your mirror and now you're taller. And that's really what happens. And so when we breathe diaphragmatically, ladies, there's something really magical that happens in our body automatically. So your diaphragm sits inside your rib cage. Think of it like an open umbrella or a mushroom cap. It lines the ribs in this beautiful dome shape. When we have restricted clothing, we aren't able to breathe diaphragmatically. There's no space. So we end up breathing like fish with gills on the side of our neck. And what that does over time is it creates tension and unnecessary just holding. So if you're someone who gets a massage and then 2 days later your neck and your upper back and your jaw is tight again, it literally is because you more than likely have been teaching your neck muscles, which are secondary breathers, how to be the primary breather. So these neck muscles that hold your beautiful head up on your body, that's a big job already. Now you're saying, oh yeah, little neck muscles, I also need you to breathe for me. And they'll do it, but they're going to get tired really, really quickly. So when we're breathing diaphragmatically, if you're driving your vehicle, obviously don't try this, but if you're listening at home and you can safely do this, if you place one hand on your sternum, it's the flat bone on your chest, okay? And then one hand on your belly button. When you inhale through your nose, like you're smelling a fresh baked apple pie, you want to try and get the palm of your belly button hand to move more than the palm of your upper sternum hand. So let's try 3 of these together. Just take a big breath in, smell that fresh baked apple pie. Try and get more air into your bottom palm, and then exhale out of your mouth, just very gently, like you're fogging up a mirror, okay? Relax your bottom jaw. Inhale, try fill that bottom hand, and then exhale. It makes kind of an HA sound on the exhale. And one more time, breathe in through your nose, fill that bottom palm, and then exhale out of your mouth, okay? Now, a couple of things. If you kept those breathing cycles going, or maybe even after just 3 breath cycles, if you started feeling a little bit lightheaded, it is a physiological sign that you are living in a state of oxygen deprivation. Our cells are unhealthy. They are unable to flourish because we're suffocating them. How are they ever supposed to do their job if they feel like they're being taxed all the time? All right. Think of your cells running a marathon. Okay. And they're running a marathon and you're like, you're suffocating them. They're not going to go very far in that marathon. So here's what happens. The aging process starts to fast forward. We start seeing our skin looking a little bit sallow. We start seeing our body posture change into like a forward frozen position. We see our circulation start to decrease. And you know what, ladies? Our blood flow is absolutely key to our body flourishing. And that's why they say, you've probably heard them say, sitting is the new smoking. It really is. We need to be getting up. If you're at a desk, sitting all day long, every hour, if you got up for 2 minutes to go to the bathroom, fill your water bottle, get a snack, that 2 minutes is enough to get that blood flow going again. You can take your deep diaphragmatic breaths during that time, and then you really reset the button. So that's why oxygenation is critical. So what I do and what I coach my clients on, you're not going to do that deep breathing 24/7, right? You're going to become a better breather. But if you could do 8 to 10 of those breaths in the morning, 8 to 10 of those breaths sometime during your day, and 8 to 10 of those breaths at night, I guarantee you're going to start to feel even just more energized from that. And that lightheaded feeling you're getting is going to start to subside, because those big gulps of oxygen you're taking in are going to start to become a regular occurrence, and your brain is actually going to be healthier, basically. Think of those days where you have brain fog. Where are my keys? Did I send that email? That's a sign of oxygen deprivation. We're in that foggy morning, afternoon, evening vibe. That's a lack of oxygen. So that is secret number 1.
Excellent. Love it. So on to number 2.
On to number 2. All right. So hydration. Our body is over 70% water. But for some reason, we don't take water in as much as we should. Did you know that the body uses our water intake in a priority system? So visualize this. Visualize a great big pyramid, all right? And at the top of the pyramid is your brain. So the first water that you take in your day is going to hydrate your brain. The middle of the pyramid are your vital organs. So once the brain is hydrated, then the next water you take in is going to go to hydrate your vital organs, your lungs, your gallbladder, your stomach, all of those really important organs that make us live the life we're living get a boost of hydration. The bottom of the pyramid is the tissues of our muscles, our bones, our joints. So if you wake up in the morning and you kind of feel like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz after a heavy rain, like, you feel a little bit creaky and it takes you 5 or 10 minutes to get going, you're in a major state of dehydration, because the tissues, ladies, that are in our body, the tissues are supposed to glide. Like think of think of going down a fun water slide. That's how our tissues are supposed to glide on each other. When we are dehydrated, think of the stickiest piece of Velcro, and you stick that Velcro together, those tissues are not going to slide. They are going to stick. And remember what I talked about blood flow a few minutes ago? When tissues don't glide, muscle tissue, fascial tissue, then we become really, our blood flow it decreases to all of our entire body, all of our tissues, and that becomes a problem. When we are dehydrated, how do you think our body gets, the nutrients and the minerals to different parts of our body, different organs, different systems? It's through hydration. So we need to be properly hydrated. Now, I always get the question, Jana, how much water should I be drinking? And, there's obviously, with technology, you can get little apps you can download to track your water. You can go, there's complicated formulas where you can put in, your height and your weight and your activity level, and they can give you, how many milliliters a day you're supposed to be drinking or how many cups of water. My general rule of thumb is this. I have a 500 ml water bottle, and I like to drink 3 to 4 of those a day. That works for my body. All right. I also like to drink tea. So my herbal tea counts towards my hydration. And ladies, those of you who love your coffee, I'm not saying stop drinking coffee, but I want you to love it. If you love the warmth of the cup in your hands, enjoy that while you're drinking it. If you really love the taste, take the time to enjoy that cup of coffee instead of just drinking it, because after we've drank 2 cups of water, 2 cups of coffee, or 16 ounces of coffee, that becomes, all that caffeine in our body becomes a diuretic, which means it's dehydrating you, and you have to drink more water to counteract that. So using, and if you're not a water drinker, good Lord, do not go to 2,000 milliliters in a day, right? Because your bladder is not going to love you, and you're not going to stick to the practice. Just drink 4 sips in the morning. And if that's what you're doing to start, that's great, right? The trick is start your hydration early, because the earlier in your day you start your hydration, your brain and your thirst mechanism are going to get woken up. So they're going to tell you more readily when's the next time to have a sip of water. If you're waiting till after lunch to drink your first sip of water, there's been 4 hours of, really wasted time. All right. So just like oxygenation plays into anti-aging, so does hydration. You'll notice your joints, you'll notice, your just the way you move is going to start to change. And if you are rehabilitating, some chronic back pain, or maybe you rolled your ankle or your shoulder's been bugging you, that rehab is going to improve exponentially when your body has the environment to heal, and it needs air and it needs water. 2 things, like I said, readily available, cost you nothing, and really take minutes a day. So that is secret number 2.
Fantastic. And when you think about, I suppose you're going to probably get asked this question a lot, but are there other ways to take water if you're not keen on just taking water bland? I mean, is it okay to drink it with a bit of orange squash or cordial, or does that count, or does that counteract it?
No, 100%. I do get that question all the time. You can put, if you've got like some of my clients like to drop a lemon essential oil, or squeeze a fresh lemon, or diffuse fruit overnight. You don't have to get one of those really fancy water bottles with the diffuser. You can just throw some berries into a water bottle at night, and overnight it's going to get the essence of the flavor. So, even some of those, you can get some of those powdered, flavored, water to flavor your water. And, not that I want you doing that all the time, but if it's part of the process to get your body into, drinking some water, that's awesome. I have no problem with any of that. And like I said, your herbal teas are going to count as your hydration. If you love, think of the food you eat. If you love cucumbers or watermelon, they are very high density in water. So you're also getting hydration from your food. So it's important to understand that, hydration truly is a mindset. If you decide you don't like water, guess what? You're not going to like water. But if you start to tell your brain, you know what? Water is going to make my skin shine. Water is going to maybe, work on lubricating it, my tissue so that I can go play catch with my dog and not have my shoulder bother me. Like if you think of the outcomes of hydration versus the action, it kind of tricks the brain a little bit into being like, okay, I can get on board with this because that's what I want to experience in my life. And the other question I get a lot, Lyn, too, before we move on to secret 3 is I don't like cold water. And I don't really care what temperature you drink your water at, whether you, have it, tepid room temperature or, boil it and drink it hot. That doesn't matter at all. It really is the action of the consistent hydration throughout the day that is key. And if you don't want to get up 3 times at night to go pee, then just drink your water from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then, that should help you.
I love that. And I also love the fact that you said about, having a different mindset and attitude towards water, because I actually love water, whether that's drinking it or, I'm a typical, I suppose, advocate of my sign because I'm a Pisces, the fish, and I actually love showers. I love having baths, and I've always had very soft skin, and I've always looked a lot younger than my age. I'm actually 61 years old, and people have always complimented me on my skin and how young I look. But it's because I have the attitude that water is my fountain of youth, regardless of what form I use it, whether I'm drinking it or bathing in it. It's a fountain of youth. And I look in the mirror every day thinking, the water is just like that fountain of youth that's making me look younger and healthier every day.
And I really love that. And we can look to nature, right? Mother Nature will never steer us wrong. What happens if you have a plant, a house plant, and you're caring for that plant, it's got sunshine, it's got, you were watering it, that plant flourishes. But what happens if you do an experiment and decide, I'm not going to water that plant for the next 3 weeks, maybe unless it's a cactus. But what do you think is going to happen to that plant? Watch the soil. The soil gets cracked. The plant, the vigor of the leaves starts to that is a living creature just like us. And so we need to be providing our body the basic building blocks for it to just shine.
Excellent. Okay, so secret number 3 then, Jana.
Secret number 3, ladies. All right. And this is coming from me as a Pilates instructor. Joseph Pilates, who is the man who created the whole system of movement, okay, was born in Germany, moved to England during the First World War, ended up in New York City. Joe, one of my favorite quotes from Joe is, the health of your body is dictated by the health of your spine. So you can have a 70-year-old body with a 30-year-old spine, and that's the quality of life that person will live. On the other hand, you can have a 30-year-old body with a 70-year-old spine, and that's the quality of life that body will live. So our spine is made up of little bones called vertebrae. In between each vertebrae is like a little jelly donut called an intervertebral disc, and it protects those little bones from each other, all right? Sometimes people get, bulging discs or herniated disc where the jelly has like poked out of that donut, and that creates issues on its own. But when we move our body when we move our spine in 5 different ways, it creates vitality. So visualize with me, ladies, if you're sitting, or if you're not sitting and you can sit, then sit. I'm going to talk you through the 5 movements that really take you a minute a day to do. So if you think about tucking your tailbone between your legs, so if you were like a puppy and you have your tail, You want to tuck it between your legs, okay? And you just kind of roll back on past the back of your pelvis, and then you sit back up. You might feel those bony sit bones underneath you. This little tucking action and then returning to tall sitting is called spinal flexion. If you add that exhale breath as you curl back, so as you curl back and exhale, and inhale, sit up. Exhale, curl back like you're tucking that tail between your legs. And one more time, exhale, curl. Here's what you're doing. You're stretching those little muscles on the side of the spine of the low back. You are giving your organs a massage as you tuck that tailbone and exhale. So that internal massage, you're creating the movement of those 5 little lumbar vertebrae at the bottom of our spine. And you're just really focusing on getting into and out of what we call a neutral spine position. Okay. So that's movement number 1. Movement number 2. I like to have a glass of wine every once in a while. This is extension. So I want you to think about, either visualize watching a bird fly overhead or drinking the last sip of wine from your glass. You're going to pretend you're wearing a sweater with a zipper, and you're going to start zipping up that zipper from your belly button. So you're going to inhale, start zipping up that zipper, look up toward that bird, or take that last sip of wine without hanging your head off your back, off your spine, and then come back and just look right back to the horizon. And do it again. Think of zipping up that zipper, zip it, make your neck feel long, make the energy go through your head, look up toward the sky. And girls, if you're doing this right, you will not feel the weight of your head, okay? It's going to feel supported by your core. And then come back to the horizon. And one more time, zip up that jacket, take that last sip of wine, take a look up, reach. It's opening the heart, and then come back to neutral. All right. So that's spinal extension. Flexion and extension are opposite movements of each other. Now, rotation. So from where you're sitting or standing, take a look over your right shoulder and take a look over your left shoulder. And I want you to visualize like a face cloth or a little hand towel. And as you rotate from side to side, visualize yourself wringing out that towel. All right. It just gives the spine that little massage. Let your shoulders move. Let your rib cage move. Really get that entire spine to twist. And just do one more each side. And then come back to the center. Okay. Tuck of the tail is flexion. Zipping up that jacket is extension. And then the rotation is number 3. Number 4, I want you to just bring your hands by your side, and I want you to reach down toward the floor on one side of your body, like you're going to pick up your purse, and then go to the other side. So it's a side bend, okay? Now I want you to notice from where you're sitting, make sure your butt feels like roots of a tree. Don't let your butt come off of your chair. So you're not going to really move that far side to side, because if you do, you're going to take the opposite butt cheek off of the chair. So it's a very subtle side to side. We call this lateral flexion, okay? The body needs to move side to side. Beautiful. Okay, so that was number 4. Tuck of the tail, flexion. Zip up the jacket, extension. Then we had rotation. Then we had lateral flexion or side bending. Now the last one, I'm just going to talk you through it. You have to lay on your floor for this one. It's called inversion. So because we live on a planet with gravity, remember I told you earlier, everything gets drawn down. So what we want to do is we want the blood flow around those little vertebrae to change direction. So if you're laying on the floor with your knees bent and your feet underneath your knees, if you gently just lift your butt off of the ground into a bridge position. Now, careful not to pop your ribs, but just lift the butt off a little bit. As long as your tailbone is higher than your heart, gravity is going to start to move the spinal fluid and the blood in a different direction. And those little jelly donuts are going to be like little sponges. They're going to be absorbing all that great spinal fluid and all that great blood, and they're going to become happy and more functional to support those little bones on either side of them. So doing that, coming up into bridge, breathe 3 or 4 times, come back down, do that again, breathe for 3 or 4 and come back down. And that really is the system of movement that healed my body, because once my body and my spine started moving like it should, because our nervous system is plugged in like lights on a Christmas tree into our spine, girls, everything else starts to become more functional. And that's what is, that's the third secret. If you did these three, obviously your breathing is going to be all day. You're not just going to breathe one time, right? So you're going to breathe 3 times a day. You're going to be sipping your water throughout the day. Your spinal movements can be done in literally less than 2 minutes. And if you are worth it, you are worth these 3 secrets to start taking slow and steady, small shifts to making huge impact in your mind, body, and spirit.
Wow. What can I say? Jana, that was fabulous. Absolutely loved that whole 3 secrets. Every single one I was getting involved there. I was actually having a go. And I actually felt that you're actually having such a huge, massive impact on the world just by relaying these 3 secrets, I'm sure.
It is. And, and ladies, right? Like as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, or maybe you went and filled your water bottle as you were listening to Lyn and I, that's what we want, right? If we don't bring these simple habits really become, if they're not on our radar, they're easy to let slide. But as soon as you do them consistently for a couple of days, our body's going to start craving it because we are giving it what it needs and it's loving it, and you're going to feel it. You're going to see it. If you are someone that gets kind of bloaty during your period, drink up your hydration, right? Like that bloating feeling. And you might think, hey, wait, that doesn't make sense. More water when I feel bloated? Yes. The tissues absorb it. They get out of that bloatiness, and you're going to feel, tighter and leaner. And that's how we impact our body as we age. These simple 3 rules can make a really big difference.
Excellent. Jana, absolutely phenomenal information. I really love that. So, I know that, for some people, especially, if they're not been used to putting these things into practice, might think, oh, that's a bit too much for me to take on board. But even if you just start with one of those steps to start with and get that as a regular habit, that's a good step in the right direction, isn't it?
Absolutely. Just do your diaphragmatic breathing. 10 in the morning, 10 in the middle of the day, 10 at night. If you just did that and you did nothing else that we've chatted about today, your body would be different.
100% agree. So, Jana, how can our listeners get hold of you? What's your main contact information, please?
So the best way to reach me is through email, and it's info@metadistrict.com. And I'm just going to spell that. So info is info, but Meta has 2 T's. So it's METTA and then district, district.com. That's the best way to reach me. Metta, just so you know, ladies, Metta is a Buddhist word that means a place of love, no judgment, benevolence. And that's what I'm trying to create around the world, is a community where women can come and feel supported, learn, and truly become better versions of themselves. It's like a pebble. You drop a pebble into a lake and you see, the little lines permeate out. That's what we are as women. We are natural nurturers. The world needs more amazing women. And when our body and our mind and our spirit is, working exactly how we want it to, then we can show up in the most magnificent way.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Then those 3 steps are just so phenomenally pearls of wisdom in their own right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, listeners, it just leaves me to say that true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group 2 Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's lyn@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.